What's going on? SEVelocity back at you Sunday night, episode 13. I'm Ev, he's Sean. You want to say anything to the people before we get into some topics?
What's going on, everyone? I'm so glad to be here and shooting another episode with my man Ev. Um, this is just a bit of news for you guys. I'm starting to be a bit more lenient towards players who undergo load management because I myself have been working really hard to be that piece that the 76ers need to get over the hump, get to the NBA Finals. So yeah, get rid of Ben Simmons and draft me in a sense. So I've been working really hard at Drexel's Recreation Center, played basketball literally every day since last Friday. And Ed here, as a good friend, because he's concerned about my health, kept telling me to take breaks. But I have the heart of a lion, and I love basketball so much. The sport of basketball is very addictive. So be careful if you get into it. And I've been going every day, and I developed some shin splints. And it's only gotten worse every day because I couldn't stay off the court. And last night, the pain, let's just say I had a very rough night sleeping last night, so I'm gonna be undergoing load management. So for you players out there who are undergoing load management, as long as it's not like missing 20 games, I'll be a bit more lenient with you guys.
You know, we didn't plan on talking about it, but I think you bring up a good point in regards to load management. I am, I hate load management, but I think it's interesting because I think a lot of the players are in agreement that there's no reason to play 82 games in a season. Like, there's no reason to have to play a game every other night. So I feel like, do you think 82 games is too much?
No,
No.
I really don't because I mean the generations in the past. Did you ever hear people like Kobe, Allen Iverson, Michael Jordan, or anyone else complain about 82 games?
No, but like think about it from like high school like let's say you're growing up, you're playing high school basketball, you play usually about a game a week, you play 16, 17 games.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to an NFL season, which I think is not enough. And then college you usually play around 20 to 25, maybe 30 games. And then all of a sudden you're in the NBA and you're playing 50 extra games and you're playing every other night. It's just way more than you're used to.
At the same time, that's why we know the players they're not going like all out every single night. They
Yeah.
can actually afford to like ease up, and also a good opportunity like if they do like not necessarily sit out games totally, but for the coach to like reduce the minutes of the starters and like let the role players play more minutes and see like what other schemes they can use. Like from that standpoint, in terms of strategies, it gives you more opportunities to tweak what you have.
Like
Like
what
I think it's a blessing, honestly.
what if you had a 64 game season and you're going full like as hard as possible instead of,
Well, I
playing
think
75%.
number one, I think that the injuries will definitely go up.
Yeah.
Um, and two, yeah, it'll be less time for the coaches to figure out schemes, especially if they have to like constantly like
Like
switch up rotations throughout the year. And three, now this is the most important one. If they were to reduce to 64, I believe majority of the players would still want to get the same massive contracts that they're
yeah,
getting now.
that you're right about. I agree with
Yeah.
that. I think with the injury thing it's difficult to evaluate because like you would also have to assume that when you have teams like the Nets paying like the Pistons, you're still going to assume like one or two of those stars are going to rest probably for a majority of the night. Like you're still going to get a decent chunk of rest when you're facing really bad teams. So
Honestly, I think the league had already been generous enough to them regarding the 82 game. Remember, I think it wasn't that long ago. What was it? 4 years ago, maybe that they made opening night begin in October, whereas for the past decades it's been in November.
yeah,
So the teams were getting way more back-to-back games. By adding extra months, they reduced the amount of back-to-back and spaced out the games more for the players. And the reason the league did that it was so that they could stop overdoing the load management crap.
it's interesting because it's like what um what do you do? Sorry, my computer just tabbed out for a second. Um, I lost my train of thought. It's it's interesting because like you don't know where the load management would be at in a reduced season. Like you don't know if the people would just sit out games in general, or it would be like way reduced rest on the or way increased rest just on the bench. I just know that I don't like having a short rest in between the season. Like I know it was like what 79 days last year. That was, and
Mm,
a lot of the players were complaining, including LeBron, about
yeah.
how detrimental that was
Oh yeah,
to
but
injury.
that was because of a special circumstance. But like
Yeah,
I think going into this year, there's everything can go back to normal. There's
yeah,
no reason.
yeah. I can agree with that. So
Hmm.
now on another topic, most recent news. We're probably gonna be the first ones talking about this because it literally just happened as we were preparing to record. Um, the Clippers are acquiring Eric Bledsoe in exchange for Patrick Beverly, Rajon Rondo, and Daniel Arturo to the Grizzlies. So interesting dynamic. I think you know already. I'm not a huge Eric Bledsoe fan. I don't think
Yeah.
he usually fits a lot of team systems well. Um, but maybe it'll be different with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I think the important thing to highlight is Pat Beverly and Rondo didn't get a lot of minutes to begin with in the playoffs.
Mm.
So keep that in mind. And they have Reggie Jackson still. So he's probably still going to be starting. Maybe Bledsoe will come off the bench. I can't imagine Bledsoe would start over Jackson after this postseason. Um, but could be a really good six man off the bench. So do you have any thoughts you want to talk about on that?
Yeah, like honestly, that trade is of very little significance to me, to
Yeah.
be honest. I don't think it really changes the team like much at all. Just maybe just in this, except for the sense that like Patrick Beverly will just antagonize other perimeter players and get in their heads. But other than that, not so much. Because I mean, by bringing in Bledsoe, you bring in another point guard with some actual basketball skills, unlike Beverly.
Do you think playing on a team with Beverly makes you better? Like, and I'm not saying
Maybe.
for like the in-game scenarios, but like let's say at practice, is he if he's doing the same thing at practice and he's just trying to get in your head and he's all over you, like do you think that that helps the team get better?
Yeah, it
Like
could
if he's
potentially.
guarding John Morant in practice and he has to deal with that, do
Yeah,
you think he might potentially get mentally stronger and maybe a little bit smarter or with
yeah,
reacting to that stuff?
yeah, probably because he'll realize, you know what? There's nobody in this league more annoying than this guy. If I can deal with him, I can handle anyone else out there. Plus, I know this dog will be out there antagonizing them. It'll make my life easier.
100%. And so I thought that would be an interesting point. But also I think Rondo being able to maybe help develop John Morant's career a little bit more too would be kind of a good step for him. Like just to have him as a backup. I think John Morant's already a pretty well established player, but I feel like Rondo can show him some stuff that he probably doesn't know still and can learn
Yeah.
along the lines.
I want to get into the Clippers a little more because I heard this on a First Take and I guess Undisputed. They talked about it. The question I brought up: will the Clippers win a championship within the next 4 years? And Stephen A's take was interesting. He's said that we could actually go out and say that Kawhi Leonard has prevented no, has costed multiple franchises winning in championships. Number one, with the fiasco with the Spurs, that meltdown. Obviously, that was just a terrible situation
Yeah.
the Spurs was in. I mean, he did what he did with the Raptors, and I mean, if you want to say because he chose to leave, I mean, we knew once he left they were no longer going to be in championship contention. But that I'll leave alone because he gave the city their first playoff berth in championship, so
Yeah.
that's fine. Then going to the Clippers, not only excessive load management, poor chemistry, straight up folding in the postseason. So yeah, essentially the Clippers and the Spurs
And a
just
better
cost him one
performance
championship.
without him than with him.
Yeah,
Uh, it's
I,
interesting. I don't think Kawhi Leonard is like bad or anything. I still think he's a top
yeah,
5 to 6 player, but
yeah.
um, I think he's a bit overrated in the sense that
He's
I
not a leader.
well that and like when you look at his Raptors run, that's phenomenal and all, but like
Yeah,
a lot of people obviously forget like the shot that won him or got him to the finals.
it was
Like
lucky.
he almost didn't make it there in the first place.
Yeah,
And honestly, outside of like a really hot streak from that team, I
yeah.
I didn't think that they had any shot of making it. And to be honest with you, I thought they were going to get blown out of the water if Kevin Durant was healthy. But
Yeah,
he
definitely, yeah.
so
And honestly, some people, and including Stephen A, they contend even without KD, if Klay Thompson was healthy that whole series. First of all, I know for a fact I was going to a game 7. The way Klay was killing them, the Toronto came back in that series when Klay got injured, so that was a definite game 7. So we could even make that argument there. The original Warriors big three would have beaten them because Kawhi, t- to be honest, he was not. I mean, he didn't play bad, but he was not all that impressive in that finals to me.
no. Um I I just don't think that. Well, now I think as a result of all that, he's kind of being put on this pedestal that is a little bit higher than he should be put on.
And Max Kellerman called him the best player in the world last year.
Yes. Like I still think he's still the best defending small forward in the NBA. Like I still
Yeah,
think he's a spectacular defender. But in terms of
best
like
two best two-way player in the game to me.
and in terms of being treated in the same class as like Kevin Durant and LeBron, I don't think that's really him. Like I
Nope.
know we kind of put him in that like class because he's a step above probably a lot of other players, but
Yeah.
I still think he's a step below Kevin Durant and LeBron. Like I don't.
I definitely agree. But here's the bigger issue though, and Stephen A brought this up, and because I know he heard it from his boy Kendrick Perky, who I know you don't like listening to, but it's not about Giannis, so maybe you'd be okay with it. Like Stephen A, we know that he can be very critical of LeBron. Like he's probably the most objective analyst when it comes to LeBron.
Mhm.
Because like I don't consider him a hater. I consider him objective, unlike Skip Bayless. Stephen A said it's such a damn shame because he said let LeBron have done that. Let LeBron have just decided to sit out a whole season, hold the organization hostage,
Yeah.
and like coerce them into bringing in the
Oh,
players
he would be the
that
most
he
hated guy in the
wanted.
NBA,
Yeah,
even
and on
more than
top
he
of
already is.
yeah, and on top of that, like the fiasco with the Spurs, which in a way I was somewhat on Kawhi's side, but I was indifferent about the whole thing. I didn't really hate either side. If LeBron had done that stuff, he would have been ridiculed beyond recognition. And the same thing would happen to Kevin Durant as well.
And like when when I heard the Spurs story, it was a lot to take in because it was a lot to follow. It's a lot of he said she said type. So it's like,
Yeah,
Kawhi Leonard had his own story, and then the whole Spurs organization had their side of the story. And I didn't know personally who to believe because I believe it had something to do with injury, right? And
yeah,
not being treated
yeah.
properly.
This was what happened because Kawhi he had a hamstring injury. No, this what happened first. It was in 2017 when after Zaza Pachulia undercut him and he got that bad ankle sprain, and then the following season when he came in to play, like he only managed to play like 9 games. He had hurt his hamstring, but then I think it was Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker. Like they think Kawhi is just dragging it out. They said they've had worse injuries than that. They're saying that he pretty much should be back already, and he didn't like that they were doubting his injuries. And I think they might have like put him on the spot or
Yeah.
something like that. And
So
then yeah, Kawhi got upset.
that's kind of what I thought. And
Yeah,
initially, I personally took the Spurs side, and I all I'm gonna say is I just hope that the truth is came out to what actually happened, and whatever happened, the person who was telling the truth is in the right.
mm,
Basically, because like if Kawhi Leonard truly had a really bad hamstring injury still, and it was nagging him for a long time, then apologies to Kawhi Leonard. He doesn't deserve the criticism for that. But like to have two very veteran type players who have been absolutely praised by every other teammate they've had to go out and say that about a
mhm,
guy who now currently does take a lot of load management in a lot of different situations, it's very hard for me to take Kawhi's side because I'm not as certain with his side versus
yeah,
guys like Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili.
yeah,
So I feel like the Spurs got screwed in a sense, but at the same time they kind of did it to themselves with the amount of criticism. But I too would be upset if one of my best players isn't playing because of an injury that you know, almost any other superstar maybe thinks they could have played through. And like I said, no one knows Kawhi Leonard's body except for Kawhi Leonard. So he's the only one who truly knows how bad that hamstring injury is. So it really
Yeah.
depends on how he was feeling. If he was feeling fine though, that's really upsetting. Or if it's very minuscule, and that kind of cost the team a lot of regular season wins or even a potential playoff run, it's upsetting. But we'll never know, and
Yeah.
that's all it is. And I'm not trying to flame Kawhi Leonard because I was on here 2 weeks ago telling you how I wanted him to sign with the Knicks once he denied his contract. We knew he was going to re-sign with the Clippers, by the way. He signed a 4-year, $176 million max deal. So we expected that, but like I still think he's a great top 5 to 6 player, and I would have loved to have him on my team. Um, he just tends to take more load management than most players, and there was rumors that he had a torn ACL, then there's rumors that he didn't have a torn ACL, and we never knew what his actual injury was. So it's like weird because his injuries never get fully disclosed, and I think that's
Yeah.
kind of awkward considering most players have like an actual injury disclosed and what exactly it is and if they have to get surgery or not. Like we never know what Kawhi Leonard's injury is and
Yeah.
like how it's affecting him. So it's hard because there's no timetable ever on his health.
Mhm.
You'd agree?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So um I don't think I have anything else to talk about on that. Um I'm going to quickly talk about Summer League. There's not much to talk about. Um, a few really good players playing from the draft. Jalen Suggs got hurt. He's, I believe, going to be getting a. Yeah, I know he's getting pulled from Summer League and he's going to be evaluated. I don't remember what his injury is. Jalen Green, the second pick for the Rockets, played really well. He and the Pistons faced off, so Cade Cunningham was the number 1 pick. They both played really well. They both had 20 plus points. Um, I really like them both. I personally like Jalen Green a little bit more, but Jalen Green is also getting an MRI because he got injured. Um,
Mhm.
so now we're only down to Cade Cunningham, which I don't think he's playing as much either because now they're letting the rest of the summer league guys play. But they all looked pretty good. Cade Cunningham, I think, will be a really good addition to the Pistons. Obviously, not enough to make them relevant, but him with Sadiq Bey and like Jeremy Grant should be, a couple very good young prospects. And then Jalen Green, along with Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr., I believe,
Yeah.
are great young core. Which is still wild to think about Kevin Porter Jr. and the whole fiasco with Cleveland because he was a great player, but I know he got upset because someone took his locker on a trade. I think it might have been Jared Allen. I could be wrong. But he requested a trade immediately after, and I would be mad too if someone took my locker. But so then he got sent as a 21-year-old to the Rockets and was averaging like 20 a game last year. So it was almost a free trade. We'll see how they do though. I don't think either of them are going to be relevant next year, but it's good building pieces for them to acquire future talent. That's all I had to say about the summer league. Knicks played pretty well. I mean, it's a little bit unfair when you have Emmanuel Quickly in your summer league. He was averaging 15 a game in the NBA, and then he gets to play summer league as a second-year player. Obi Toppin actually showed up because he didn't do that most of the season. He played well in summer league. Um, and then here and there from the rookies, the second-round pick played well as well. Um, Now, the biggest topic we wanted to talk about was top 5 players in each position. And I think that's what we're going to fill the rest of our time with because this is a very give and take type list.
Actually, I just want to put one thing out there.
Sure.
Um, yeah, big news, everyone. The 76ers, they have been listening to me. They're making it their number one priority to make sure Ben Simmons is not on the roster at the start of the season. Yes, they're fine. They see the light. Our way to the final, get rid of that waste of money that is Ben Simmons.
So I think that, I kind of flamed the Sixers organization a couple weeks ago, but I think I should kind of talk a little bit more about that real quick because I was saying how they wanted 4 first-round picks for him, I believe. They wanted James Harden type ransom for him. Now, I originally flamed them for this coming out, but I'm going to kind of go back on that because after I had some time to think about it, and I think a lot of NBA fans know this, it's not necessarily that that's actually what they're looking for. It's a tactic to leak to the news in hopes that people are going to start offering way more than what they have been offering. It won't be 4 first round picks, but at least they'll be able to take a better offer than what they've been given so far. So they're trying to fish around for a better offer.
Yeah.
So it's a tactic that they're trying to use. Um, I think now they're starting to realize they're not going to get nearly that, and now, like you mentioned, they're kind of trying to trade him at all costs. Depending
Hmm.
on, I think they want at least something decent in return.
Well,
Um,
yeah, definitely. They're
yeah,
not gonna try and get worse, but
yeah,
they're definitely making a push.
yeah. They're gonna try. I think they're gonna probably try to package something to get a better player. At least in their opinion, like a CJ McCollum or something, but maybe have to throw something in with Ben Simmons to get that. So we'll see. Um,
Hmm.
but that's exciting because I'm as we both know, Ben Simmons has been in any contact with the Sixers organization, completely leaving them on red. So we'll see how that goes. Go from there. Daryl Morey is the GM, I believe, too, for the Sixers, who was the former Rockets GM when he had to deal with James Harden. So interesting
Hmm.
dynamic.
Yeah.
Now, so top five in each position. Which position would you like to start with?
Well, just because we're trying to educate like some of those viewers who don't know basketball, we'll start with the position we call the one, the point guard.
Point guard. All right. So I think personally, I know it would be more dramatic to go from five to one, but I think it's way easily more structured if we talk about the best and then go down to the fifth or sixth.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, who do you think's number one out of all the point guards?
Uh, Steph the chef, Mr. Curry.
I absolutely agree. I don't think there's any doubt about it. For people who watch us but don't watch as much basketball as they probably hope to, I mean, Steph is doing stuff that no other point guard does, and that's not to sound dramatic. It's just no one out like casually shoots 10 feet behind the 3 point line on a normal basis and makes it almost
outside
every
of
time.
outside of Damian Lillard.
Yeah, Damian Lillard's the one exception.
Yeah.
Um, so he's super fun to watch, and just the way I think his shot form's wild. Like it looks like he's kind of shooting from like where his like neck is, and he kind of just like it looks like it's
Mm.
not like a like he's not like putting any thought into a shot. And he just drills it no matter what. So it's like it's always fun
Yeah.
to watch. And he always finds a way to get open. It's funny because when he doesn't have the ball, he's
He's always moving.
yeah, he's always moving. He's trying to shake people. He's just trying to cross paths with another player on his team, where it's kind of like an inadvertent screen. He's just trying to get
Yeah.
trying to get someone caught on somebody so he's wide open in the corner. And 9 times out
And
of 10, he is wide open.
and in the process, he helps his teammates get open.
Yeah, it's great spacing. So that's an easy one. Now, what about number two?
Number two, Dame Dollar, Damian Lillard.
Okay, so I have a different listing, but this is kind of really dependent on where you list this person. So Luka Doncic, do you consider him a
Oh yeah. Honestly, I would consider him a small forward because like the way he plays, I see point forward from him.
Yeah, so I'm going by the ESPN listing, but I completely understand his point of view. So I'm listing him as a point guard. He kind of considers him. Do you consider him a small forward?
Yeah,
Okay, because
he's 6'7". Yeah,
I'm going by the ESPN listing of point guard. I kind of consider him to be a shooting guard because he kind of plays in between both. But I literally can see an argument for point guard, shooting guard, or small forward.
yeah.
Um,
I just see a lot of LeBron in the way he plays.
yeah. So I have him number two for the point guard list. If we're not considering a point guard, then Damian Lillard is second for me, and that's clear.
Eh,
But like Luka
Yeah,
Doncic is one of the players that I feel like is on a similar rise as like the guys like Kevin Durant and LeBron. Like how quickly
yeah.
he's developing and how
I
great
think
he is at his age.
he's developing faster than they did.
Yeah. So like that's an easy pick for me. I mean, I think
Mm.
we both agree that's probably going to be the best player in the NBA in 3 years.
Yep.
Um,
And the case for Damian Lillard at putting him two, it's funny. Like for a year, whenever I look at his game and look at Steph Curry's game, like it's funny in a way they're so similar but different. I think because the way what really makes Steph Curry to me better than Damian Lillard is the way he can operate off the ball. Because
yeah.
Damian doesn't hold a candle to Steph operating off the ball,
Right.
and Steph is also a better passer, playmaker. But where I do give Damian the edges, as great as Steph is at shooting off the dribble, I think Damian's a superior. Like shooter off the dribble. In a sense, he's a better overall isolation one-on-one player.
100%.
Yeah, because I think part of it's not because Steph is lacking the skills in it. I don't think Steph is as comfortable or confident in that. Like, because if you notice, when defenders really press up on Steph, he passes the ball quick and tries to shake them off the ball to get it back. Damien, if you step up on him defensively, he'll just keep pounding the ball and shake you himself.
Well, and I think when you compare them too, I think with Steph Curry having a little bit of a lower shot, and also I don't consider him as much of a shot creator in a sense where he's not. He's going to do a bunch of moves and he's going to find a way to
Yeah,
shoot over someone's head right in their face.
yeah,
That's not him.
yeah, yeah,
Damian Lillard will always try to find a shot, even if it's right in your face, and I feel like
yeah,
he creates that shot better, whether it's a step
yeah,
back or whether he's trying to cross somebody over.
yeah.
And I also consider Damian Lillard more clutch. So
Yeah, and he's a better score finisher inside at the rim as well.
yeah,
But essentially, what sets Steph, I will say this, is if Damian Lillard was an elite playmaker, like I'm not even gonna go as far as Chris Paul, but I'll say if he could pass the ball like on the level of like even a Russell Westbrook, if he had that kind of like playmaking capability, then I think we can make a legit case for him as being number one. But
yeah.
because he's lacking there, um, he's behind Steph.
I think that could be coming down to scenery, like better teammates around him, or even a different coach. We'll see with Chauncey Billups if he stays there. But I feel like when you as a superstar are on a team for 5 or 6 years or however long he's been on that team, you can only learn so much before you kind of reach the ceiling. And so like
Mm,
now it's like what if you went to a new team? There's going to be different things they tell you, new stuff that you're going to learn. So I feel like he needs to go to another team, and it doesn't have to be the Knicks. Of course, I would love that, but like any team in general, I feel like you're going to develop other traits that you might not have learned as much in Portland. So
yeah,
I would like to see that personally, and it sucks that he's stuck in Portland hell. Um,
yeah.
but I mean that's the way it works. So number four.
Oh, that'll be number four for you, number three for me. Um,
Oh right, right.
but all right.
Well,
After the
I'll say number three. Well, we'll
yeah,
take Luka Doncic out of there. He's considered my second best point guard if anyone
mm,
watching, if we consider
yeah,
him a point guard.
okay, all right. And after Damian Lillard, who would I put?
Mine's Chris
I
Paul,
yeah, I would think yeah,
and it's
I'm
not
gonna
his
say Chris
scoring.
Paul.
It's just what he contributes to everything else around the team. Because
Yeah,
I'm like with the Suns, that team is almost exactly the same as they were without Chris Paul a year ago, and they were nowhere close to touching the playoffs. So
yeah,
I think it says a lot when a guy comes in and has that much of an impact. I mean, Monty Williams is great too, but like the impact he's had on the court, like spacing, pick and roll, passing, distribution, like anything along those lines, and still having a sense of a clutch gene where he makes those shots when it matters the most. Like he's not a big
yeah,
scorer, but like if you need that score, he'll give it to
yeah,
you anytime.
yeah.
Um,
And then number four, I'll put Kyrie.
I also have Kyrie at four. Minus Luca. So this was a tough one. This makes it a little bit easier for me because now I know who five's going to be, excluding Luca. Um, Kyrie didn't play a lot, but based off of his talent and his game style, I really like him as a player.
Yeah, he's
Um,
so entertaining to watch.
I don't always agree with his decisions to not play. I mean, I think that his social awareness is really good. Like taking a step away for worrying about social issues. That's different. But like, a lot of the times when he kind of just um, decides to take a break from a game, I don't think it's necessarily you know something that I hate in terms to social awareness. It's more letting the rest of your team down. Like your team might need you for those moments. But he's also
Mm,
had an injury studded season too. So he's been injured a lot. So I can't really make a proper evaluation on him. But when he's healthy, he is by far one of my favorite people to watch because of his ball handling skills and he's a great shot creator too.
yeah.
It's
Just watching him finish at the rim, like
yeah,
under the basket, is something special.
yeah. What are your
But
thoughts on
but
his
again,
absence?
his absence. Well. I'll tell you number one. I'm gonna go a bit back into like the bubble. I was honestly really ticked off and frustrated as a black man myself when he really tried to use all the Black Lives Matter movement, all of that as an excuse to not go in the bubble, which is a load of crap to me. Because I knew that he wasn't gonna go in the bubble to begin with. Because one, dragging out injury as you start to lead towards, but he knew Kevin Durant wasn't going to be there, so he knew they didn't have a chance at winning the
Yeah,
title to begin with. He just used it as a convenient story that like many people will be hesitant to contradict, and also given in a way, somewhat in a way, holding the Nets organization kind of hostage because the higher ups, the food chain, like in the league and the business structure, they're what? They're white men, and I'm sure if he's using Black Lives Matter as a reason to like sit out of these games, or he claims that, it puts them in an awkward situation to like deny him or ridicule him for it.
right.
Um, but me, it was a load of crap. And even now, when he uses that as an excuse to these social justice issues and stuff to step away from basketball, it's a load of crap to me. And there's no excuse because when has LeBron James ever used it as an excuse to step away from basketball? And he's been the most active NBA player
Well,
ever in the community. He
and
had more responsibilities on his plate, both in the league and outside the league, and he never ever used it as an excuse to not show up to work.
and my two biggest takes on are you're feeding your team to the wolves in that bubble scenario, and I didn't
Yeah,
think that was fair to them. But also in regards to when we talk about LeBron and everybody else, a lot of those guys understand that this is my biggest platform to
yeah,
spread that social
y-
awareness. So I feel like he kind of fumbled that away instead of using that platform to kind of speak up more. If
yeah. And despite the fact, yeah, they're making millions and stuff, and millions of dollars and stuff, and they're playing basketball. But guess what? That is their work.
Yeah.
Like your social issue and whatnot. That's not an excuse to not show up to work. Way back in the days during the civil rights movement and stuff, I bet you was like, well, black people of course were being harassed at work. Hell, just stepping outside was like a survival game for them. They still had to go out there, go to work, support their families, and whatnot. And Kyrie, what he's doing. He wants to step away from games and whatnot. But I bet you, if they would decide to say, "Okay, Kyrie, you do that, we're deducting your pay," then he's gonna have a problem with that.
Hmm.
Then,
Yeah, I can agree with that. Um, it's such a touchy topic because I know so many people have different viewpoints. Especially in regards to Kyrie, where they won't agree with that. They feel like that he's being very pro. Promoting everything. I guess is the way to put it. But it's
it's crap.
it's not something like I just want to ignore because it's obviously a topic that's worth covering and evaluating. And I know everyone's got different takes on that, but I personally think that it was not the best decision. And I know you feel the same way, so I wanted to see your take
Mm.
on that. Now, when we talk about number five, I feel like there's a chance we could have different answers, but maybe not.
The fifth best point guard in the league is Trey Young.
Yes, bingo. I like it. Awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to think of who else that was going to be on that list.
John Morant,
No, absolutely not. I think John Morant's a phenomenal player, but he's just not there yet.
Lonzo, Lamelo.
All right, Lonzo's the best. I'm sorry, I couldn't say that with a straight white face. I mean, there was an argument for Trey Young. I know some people still feel some type of way about Westbrook, not me personally. Um,
Yeah, honestly, he's fallen off of there for me because he's just not as impactful as he was back in like when we were in high school, like towards the end of our high school years, like 2015 through 18 Westbrook. That Westbrook I would have had in the top three.
yeah. And there's so many good guys that are like not in the top five yet that I feel like could get there. It's just
Mhm,
they're on weird teams where they can't contribute as much. So like De'Aaron Fox is one of them. He's very statistically he's killed it. I mean he's great on the court too, but like no one gets to see that because he's on the Kings. Um,
mhm.
Colin Sexton was really good, on the Cavs. Again, not gonna get a lot of love because his team was terrible. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. I think that might be everyone that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the list here. Yeah, there's no one else. I think those two though are worth noting because they're both very young, and I think that they can always get better. Um, Lonzo Ball is just a good distributor, but he doesn't score a lot. Okay, so we're pretty much the same on the top five. Actually, exactly the same minus Luca. So now on the shooting guard, which this is a traumatizing one because I have no clue who I'm going to put where. I think me and you both agree number one is James Harden, so I'll just go out there and
Yeah.
say that. Now, I also want to point out if we're counting Kyrie Irving as a shooting guard now, because I know he technically plays shooting guard and James Harden's the point guard. I think James Harden is still in the same spot as Kyrie, fourth on the list. I think that's where you would put James Harden too. I think at least in terms of a point guard, Damian Lillard, Steph, and Luca are all better as a point guard.
I don't think so because Harden is a better passer than every single one of them.
Okay, I would take him over Chris Paul for sure. Like absolutely, because he scores a lot too. Uh, Damian Lillard, I personally, that's a tough one. I think James Harden is a great player, but I think Damian Lillard's more clutch, and I think that factors in really well into the player as well.
That is true, but I look at it well, yeah, with those game winning shots, but consider this. What's the team that we've seen Damian Lillard and James Harden lose most frequently to? It was the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah,
And now this is a perfect way to measure it. When we see Harden against those Warriors teams, KD was obviously first of all the best player on on either side. The second best player in the series, as disappointed as we were in Harden, it has been Harden in those series.
I
It has been, except for no, except for no, the last, well, that was just really one game, but yeah, the elimination game on game six when KD went out, Steph did get Harden that game, but other than that, Harden's been the second best
I
in those series.
I personally would take Steph over Harden in terms of point guard. Um, and overall as a player, but
I
I
wouldn't overall as a player. Point guard, I don't. The thing is, it's just hard because I look at
I
it
still
like
think
this.
Harden's a shooting guard.
Yeah, look, yeah, definitely. But I'm also considering this. If we look at those Houston Rockets teams, we know that the reason why they lost was pretty much both of us agree it was a mixture of D'Antoni's coaching and Harden's decision making. Just basically him just forcing up too many threes. That's what it comes down to. But if you think about it, those Rockets team, they really were not. I don't think anyone ever considered them one a super team.
No,
Two, Harden was only the real definite star there. Like even before Chris Paul was there,
but
Harden was bringing that Rockets team. He brought them to conference finals
but
in the past.
we just saw what the Suns just did with Chris Paul and Devin Booker. So like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you expect that out of Chris Paul and James Harden too, in a sense? I guess
No,
maybe
no,
not
yeah,
because of the
no,
super
yeah,
team of the Warriors.
no, no, yeah, no, yeah, for sure. But yeah, do you know in that series, like I think, well, I don't know about you, but I personally feel like not 2019, but 2018. I think when they met the Warriors in the conference finals, you can remember went to Game Seven and Chris Paul was hurt.
Yeah,
Because remember Chris Paul forced that Game Seven. I feel like if Chris Paul that year were playing, then the Rockets might have beaten the Warriors. Because even without Chris Paul, they only
yeah,
lost by 7 points in that Game Seven.
yeah,
But yeah, yeah, I just think that I think seeing what Harden, we know, I think Harden, if you were just to look at just their skill sets personally, individually, and what they bring on the floor, Harden brings more to the court than Steph does. But what's Steph's advantages? Obviously, he's moving without the ball, but also his efficiency.
yeah.
That's the difference. But as a pure scorer, as in I want you to go out there and get me a bucket, I take Harden over Steph. But
I
now, but the thing is that it's a matter of whether Harden is going to actually, make the right decision to do it. Because I don't know why. In the regular season, we see him attack the basket so much, and nobody can keep him from getting to the rim. But
Yeah,
for some reason in the playoff, you want to keep forcing up those threes.
it's just like the way I'm evaluating it in my head is if I take James Harden off the Nets and I
Yeah.
say I have the option between James Harden and Steph Curry, I feel like I'm taking Steph Curry every time.
Well, but you see that's where it depends on who else you have there. Because if you're keeping Kyrie there, then yes, I think they'd be better off with Steph because we know Kyrie's already ball dominant.
Yeah.
So you Steph's a value of operating off the ball would work. But let's say Kyrie isn't there, and let's say it's just KD, and you have to put someone there to be like the primary ball handler on the team. If KD's gonna play on the wing, I will go with Harden.
Okay.
I just
Agree to
think
disagree.
overall,
I
I
mean,
just
there's
think,
no way we're gonna be able to change each other's opinion on it.
yeah, I'll just to the audience, I'm just looking like individual as a player and what they bring to the table. Harden, even when he shoots, is a better defender than Steph Curry. He's a me. I think he's a better passer. He's a better pure scorer overall. Obviously, Steph has the shooting, obviously, but a better pure scorer
I just think
and
that
rebounding.
I just think
Again,
defenses
Harden.
have to adjust way more to Steph Curry than they do James Harden.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the nature of like this floor spacing Steph gives like when he's operating off the ball. But given that when the defense does adjust, I mean, in reality, Harden's the one who stops himself. That's the
Yeah,
difference. We have seen Steph Curry get. I'm not gonna say completely shut down, but I'll say contained. We've seen it happen to him, especially when they start putting the
yeah,
double teams on him. But with Harden, that's not really what stops him. It's Harden just forcing up all those threes.
yeah. All right. In terms of time, we should go to number two. We both agree James Harden's number one.
Yeah.
So number two, I think Donovan Mitchell is number two. I think that he's the closest to being a superstar. I mean, he kind of is already, but like taking the next step to be even better than he is, he's been on the quickest path, in my opinion. Um, do you
Mm-hmm.
have any thoughts
I
towards that?
yeah, I agree. I have him as number two.
Okay. Now number three is where it gets interesting because this is where I struggle to evaluate. I have always been on the thought that Devin Booker is overrated, so this is probably where half the people watching would expect me to say Devin Booker, but I'm not going to say it. So I personally think in a perfect world, fully healthy, I think Klay Thompson's number three. Um, and I
Yeah.
think you'll see that next year when he's healthy, playing with Steph. How because I think a lot of people forgot what they were like without Kevin Durant. They were still great. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's probably going to come to fruition next year. And they got a lot of the pieces back that they need. I mean, I don't think a 45-year-old, yeah, I know he's not 45, Andre Iguodala is really going to contribute that much, but he should contribute good floor spacing and passing at least. Now, so I think Klay Thompson's number three. Do you agree with that, or would you say Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Zach Levine,
I'm
Paul
definitely
George?
not. I'm definitely not putting Booker. I mean, okay, if we're actually throwing Paul George there in it as a shooting guard, for me, I personally will put, rank Paul George among the small forwards. But if we're putting him among shooting guards, I would have him at three because if Clay's game is just hard to evaluate, especially in this modern era, like compared to like these other top tier two guards, off guards, because of his lack of an ability, he doesn't have the capabilities of being a number one option. Like
Yeah,
if I were to pick among if we were to rank among them who we want as our number one option, I don't think Clay would even be in our top five.
well, and we both agree one and two are
Yeah,
like our one and two are probably the only ones that could be a number one option. Like James Harden and Donovan
yeah,
Mitchell. I don't think after
yeah.
that you can have anyone else.
Yeah, but now if you had to rank them to be like your definite, like I definitely want that guy to be my number two. Clay would excel at that role better than anyone else, especially seeing his amazing explosions with the Warriors backing up Steph.
Now, I don't think you're far off for me because I have Paul George at four. So I
Mhm.
like him a lot, and I have Devin Booker at six, and that's a little bit deep, but I think Bradley Beal's better than him at five.
Oh yeah, I think it's fair enough. We saw what Devin Booker was doing in the postseason.
And I'm going to evaluate everything, every one of his performances, so that includes postseason. And to be honest with you, I don't think he played that well in the late postseason. He played well early,
Yep.
but late in the postseason, he wasn't there. And then I guess the worst one, which is not even the worst, is Zach Levine. It's just he's on a team where he's kind of getting. He's a great player and he's an all-star, but he's also the only option. So I think he's kind of getting shoved a volume of points constantly. Um, so he's kind of forced to score on a consistent basis. We'll see how that goes with DeMar DeRozan. I don't think he'll be scoring as much. I think DeRozan will take at least 15 to 20 of those points, and then Lonzo will probably get you 10 to 15, and then you have Vucevic as well, who will be in the lineup, which he was last year too, but it won't just be him. Um, so I think that you're going to see him be relied on less because you saw him in a lot of those games score 45 and he's getting pissed off on the bench because they're still down 15. So I think it's a matter of him just being forced to shoot constantly, and I don't think that's something that's necessarily preaches number one in the league. I think it's just someone that's put into a bad scenario. Um,
Hmm.
and we just haven't been able to evaluate him yet. Would you say Levine's the worst on the list out of the seven?
Yeah, I agree.
And then where would you put Booker? So, who would be your four, five,
Wait.
and six?
Okay.
You have Beal,
Well,
Thompson, and Booker. Where do you put them? Four, five, and six. If you have Levine
oh,
at seven,
oh, all right. Oh yeah, I need to sub back at the top. So Harden, um, Mitchell, Paul George.
and then
Um,
you have Clay, Beal, and Booker left, and you have Levine at the bottom
Clay.
already.
All right, I'll put Clay there,
Yeah.
J- and then I'll put Beal,
Okay.
just because we seen Clay like elevate on the biggest
Yeah. No,
stages.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and then oh yeah, who would be left? Oh Booker. Yeah, Booker's dead last, right? For me.
You put him ahead of Levine or behind? Oh, well, you put him at six, and then Levine at seven, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I just think Booker. I think
He was
Booker
just too disappointing.
And I think he got a little, and it wasn't his fault. He just got overhyped a lot because of the playoff run. So like
What the
everyone,
hell was that? It was his fault. The way he played in the finals?
but
No.
like, I think we all knew he was a great player, but I think he got shoved into this superstar name basically in the playoffs more than
Well,
he
yeah,
should have. Like the
well,
Kobe
yeah.
comparisons.
Well, yeah, but that had nothing to do with the placement of shooting guards to me because overall, to me, the shooting guard position wasn't really all that strong. Like right now, the league is dominated by the point guard and small forward spots.
I don't know. That's a lot of good shooting guards though. Those
Well, no,
seven.
yeah, they're good. They're good, and they've gotten there. The shooting guard position has elevated now, but I'm just saying, looking back, there's a point where we just said James Harden, and we didn't know where we'd put all the other shooting guards.
Yeah. Now, all right. Let's talk small forward. Now, before I tell you talk about this, Giannis isn't considered a small forward for me. So I'm not putting him in this list.
Okay,
You're welcome to if you want, but I don't have him
yeah.
listed. So my number one, you already know the answer to this, is Kevin Durant. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to assume yours is going to be LeBron.
Yes.
Okay, now this is very simple. I'm pretty sure your two is going to be Kevin Durant, and my two is going to be LeBron.
Yeah.
That's pretty clear. Now, all right. Oh well, this this one should be pretty easy too. Three,
Three, Kawhi.
Kawhi Leonard. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where it gets tough. I have four is Jason Tatum. Um, I think the pool of small forwards you have left is Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler, and Chris Middleton are the three that are on my head. So
Okay, but remember, for me, I have Giannis considered as a small forward.
yeah, I think it's a sin that you have Kawhi ahead of him, but that's okay.
Well, you know what? You can't tell me anything because I recall you having Giannis ahead of Kawhi when your Giannis straight up folded up against him.
Yeah. Now I'm
Those
going off
two,
of recency though. So
yeah, yeah, I have Kawhi then Giannis. Then all right, so yeah, I have Giannis at four, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's four. And then number five,
go say it. Go ahead, say it.
yep, I'm putting my guy Jimmy buckets at five. I still have Jimmy over Tatum for
Okay.
now.
So since I don't have Giannis on my list, four is Jason Tatum,
Hmm.
and five is I'm going to say Jimmy Butler, but Chris Middleton's a super close second, and it's more just because he's not the
He,
leader of his team, so I'm not seeing what he would be if he was completely alone. And I don't, I he's not the Batman. Um,
yeah.
and
You know why I'm
but like
smiling?
I'm genuinely curious if Butler and Middleton switched roles, what it would be like. I'm not saying Middleton would be better, but I'm curious to see what he would be like being the sole All Star on his team. I mean, with the exception of Bam, but I don't really consider him that big of a piece of an All Star.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I'll go Butler over Middleton. Now, power forwards is a bit tough to evaluate. Um, the first one's easy for me. It's Giannis because I consider him a power forward. I completely understand small forward though. It could be either or.
Mhm.
So that one's easy for me. I'm gonna assume that you have Anthony Davis number one because that wouldn't
Yes, sir.
no other answer would make sense. Um, I have Anthony Davis at two, so like if we took Giannis out of there, I completely agree he's the best power
I'm
forward.
surprised you don't have Julius Randle at two.
No, Julius Randle's number one in my heart. So all right, you have Anthony Davis in one. I have Anthony Davis two, only because of Giannis. Number
Yeah.
three, though, I have Zion, which is tough because we both agree he's a very small power forward. But like for what he does, um, there's really not many power forwards in the league that contribute as much as he does.
Yeah.
Now this is where it gets tough. Four and five. Who's your three?
Oh, well, since I don't even have Giannis on the list, I really got to think. I have Anthony Davis, and after him, um, this is so hard.
Oh yeah, you don't have a two yet.
Yeah, number two, I'm gonna have to go somewhat recency on this. I mean, I'm gonna say, I guess it will be Julius Randle because of this year.
Yeah, I don't think
Even though
you're
he was so bad in the playoffs, but still.
he was awful in the playoffs. I'll give
Yeah,
you that.
but I'm also considering. I was thinking guys like John Collins, but they weren't in the position of being the number one option on their team, whereas Randall was.
Yeah, and I the only reason I have Zion ahead of him is I think that Zion would have been really good in that position too, and I don't know for certain. Randall's my four, so he's right after. Um, but I think they're pretty interchangeable. It's more on Zion's potential than anything to
Yeah,
potentially get even better. I feel like Randall was the most improved this year, but I don't think he. I think he's kind of going to hit a plateau soon. I don't think he's going to get
yeah.
much better than he is right now. Um,
Okay, all right. And I'll just say I'll put Zion at three for me.
so,
Um,
now who's your four? Because Randall's my four because of
yeah.
Antetokounmpo.
Four. I guess I'll put you. You're gonna be surprised by this, but Kristaps.
Okay. I don't hate it. My next guy is John Collins. I think John Collins is the best outside of Anthony Davis. True power forward, size and all. I think John Collins is the next best. Like I think Randall is a combo of a lot of things.
Oh, wait, I didn't say Collins yet, did I, on
No.
my list? Yeah, scratch that. I have Collins at, what would that be, fourth for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, fourth, and then I have Kristaps five.
Okay. So that's completely fair. I really like John Collins as a player. I we're talking about traditional size and an actual power forward. I think he's the second best compared to Anthony Davis, considering Zion's a bit undersized and more of a combo of a lot of things, and Randall does a lot of stuff too. Um, I like John Collins a lot though. All right, last one, and probably my favorite one to evaluate, the center position.
Yep.
I think I know who you're gonna pick first, and I think that we're probably not gonna agree on it, but that's fine because I think that our second's still gonna be pretty clear anyway. My first is Nikola Jokic. I think offensively he contributes a lot, and I think he contributes a lot passing wise too. Um, I will say though, Joel Embiid's a better defender. I agree with that
Hmm.
through and through. I just think what Jokic brings on the offensive end uh, outweighs that just slightly, not by much. And I think that they're both very interchangeable. And I'm going to assume you're going to put Embiid at one.
That right there just proves you. Whenever we go bicker at basketball and stuff, you don't process a word I say because since last year I've had Jokic as number one.
Okay, you said Jokic a couple times as number one, but
No, I always said Embiid's my favorite. I
okay,
always said Embiid's
no,
my
yeah,
favorite, and I said I have them neck and neck. But what sets them apart for me is postseason and
okay.
closing moments. I've
Because
said that more than once. We got tape.
in fairness to me, I swear I heard at least once during the regular season that you said Embiid was better, and
No,
I
no, I said MVP. I think he should get MVP
okay,
because
okay,
he
so
was
that
the
might be what
number
it
one
is.
for a while. Yeah,
So we both agree Jokic's number one, and
yeah.
he has been super fast from where he was a couple of years ago. Like his development has been insane. How quickly he got to the top.
Honestly, to me, I think it's almost somewhat blasphemous, or not really blasphemous, but I think it's ridiculous that I actually have to sit there and wonder why is Jokic not considered in top five conversations?
I
Or
know
what is he really lacking? Because I mean,
he can
outside of
dribble too.
yeah, outside of LeBron and KD, I think we can obviously because positions make it difficult, but I think at this point, I think we could talk about him in comparison to guys like Steph.
Yeah.
Even you know how much I love Anthony Davis, but comparison to AD,
Well,
comparison to Giannis,
and like,
comparison to Kawhi, I think so.
and we talk about it, and like when we go into the playoffs, he did better on his own than Steph did on his own.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. You know how I feel about Steph being number one option in the playoffs.
so yeah, you're right, and I do hate that centers don't get nearly as much love when it comes to top five conversations.
Hell, and James Harden.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the list goes on. He's like I don't think he's lacking in skills at all.
I do think if I look at it, if I had to, like, if I had one star player on my team, let's say it's a small forward, we'll say Kevin Durant, just in general, just because, and you could say LeBron. But either way, I think if you had a choice between James Harden and Jokic, just because of how rare what Jokic has is, I think a lot of people would take Jokic just to have
Mm,
as a
I
building
don't
piece.
think I don't think so. No, as in like I'm not saying that you're wrong in terms of the evaluation, but I don't
Oh,
think not a lot of people
yeah,
because you
you're
know what
right.
everyone's gonna say James Harden and his 60-point games and all of that.
Yeah, I think me and you, you would take Jokic.
Yeah, like honestly, it's what I almost consider Jokic. I consider Jokic like this isn't almost like a 7-foot version of James Harden because like both of them. I mean, neither of them are a stellar defender. I think Harden is a better defender on the perimeter than Jokic is on the post, but a really offensive guy. Both of them are gifted all around offensive
Yeah,
players.
Jokic
So
can
I,
shoot
I think
threes.
I think it's like neck and neck.
Yeah, it's
Where,
tough.
where yeah, where Harden has him as like a scorer. I think
My
Harden's a better pure scorer, but Jokic, despite the fact he's a big man, I think he's a way better passer than Harden. Well, way better. Well, Harden
for
can
his
pass
position.
on a high level, but I think he is a better passer than Harden.
I think the big thing is too. My look at it is I'm taking Jokic because like when you look at the other centers, he's very like outside of Embiid, everyone else is so far away from him and Embiid. Like there's no one
But at the same time, do you think maybe that's the thing that's being held against him? He's not going up against as tough competition as guys like Steph and
that
Harden. They're going up against tougher guys.
that's true. I take him. I would take him as a centerpiece because my evaluation is that I could probably find a shooting guard, that's not necessarily in Harden's level, but there's a bigger pool of good shooting
Y-
guards.
Yeah, that can at least give you some contribution
Right.
against him.
Yeah. And because I would hate to have a bottom tier center on my team.
Yeah,
All right. So now number two is Joel Embiid. I know you're gonna say
yeah,
that too. That's
yeah,
pretty evident. There's no one else. Now three, we both agree is Carl Anthony Towns, and
yeah. As annoying as he is,
it's annoying because he hasn't gotten better at all. Like he's been at the same spot for the last 2 years, and like I don't see much.
my problem is this: is he's not using his skills.
Yeah,
He's not. Like we
he's a
know
capable
he's
player.
yeah, we know he's skilled. Like honestly, I think right after Jokic, or maybe even the conversation of Jokic, he could potentially be the best all around offensive center in the league. Like I'm thinking of like Boogie Cousins, like being that dominant scorer and rebounding machine.
And
Like I think he could potentially be better than Embiid and Jokic offensively.
he's not willing to take a heavy leadership role either. Like I firmly believe, maybe not this year, but next year, I guarantee you Anthony Edwards is going to be the leader of that team. Because Anthony
Yeah.
Edwards, we already saw, early on he was averaging 15 a game. Then he started to get to like 25 to 35 a game. He started killing it. So like you can already see he's kind of developing fast. I think next year
Hmm.
he's going to do really well too, as long as he doesn't get injured. Um, but I think we're going to start to see him kind of take the reins as the leader of the team and probably the focal point, just because Cat's a very passive person, regardless of how skilled he is. He's very
Yeah.
passive about everything, and it's a shame because I think he's a phenomenal talent,
Yep.
and he could always. It's kind of like what Kobe said with Shaq. He was like, "Oh, I would have 12 rings if he put in a ton of work in the gym." And that's not necessarily Cat. He's a very, athletically gifted and everything, but he's very passive. He's not aggressive at all. And it was just
Yeah.
if he could step up that aggressiveness, he'd be so much better.
Yep.
Um, Now number 4, this is where I feel like things start to
Yeah.
get really kind of rough. Rudy Gobert, I
Yeah. I have
great
him set
defensive
for.
center. It's just he doesn't score, and personally, I think that the Jazz, without a doubt, are going to the NBA Finals if they have a guy like Jokic or Embiid on their team, because that complements Donovan Mitchell really well.
Yeah.
Um, with just defense, though, you're lacking a big part of your team. And if I'm not mistaken, Joe Ingles, I think Joe Ingles might be leaving the team. Um, I know they still have Jordan Clarkson, but you need scoring on that team outside of my poor man Donovan Mitchell. He's getting
Yeah.
screwed because he's completely alone. And then we overpay Mike Connolly to re-sign with the team. Uh, Never understand that, but I like Rudy Gobert. I just don't think
Yeah.
that he is a very high echelon example of a center to be number
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. But but I'll have him at 4 as well. And for me, number 5, I'm gonna go against what we discussed earlier. I'm putting DeAndre Ayton at number 5.
I completely respect that, and I honestly have been reconsidering it since you brought him up because I forgot about him in a sense. Um, I have Nikola Vucevic at number 5. I think he's a really good defender and a good rebounder and a pretty good scorer. I think that DeAndre Ayton does that really well though too. I would probably put him on pretty equal playing fields. Um, the thing is, it's easier to give the advantage to Eaton because he's very young, so he's probably just going to get better. So
Yeah.
I guess if we're gonna, I'd probably put him at equal. So I guess that would give the tie to Eaton.
Hmm.
Um, but I like Vucevic a lot too, and I'm missing one center that I
Nurkic.
no, absolutely not. Nurkic is underrated, but he's never healthy.
Yeah.
Porzingis is listed as a center. He's not going to be
Yeah.
listed either because he's not a center. He's not a good center, at least. He's a good power forward. Um,
Yeah.
I want to bring up Christian Wood, and he wouldn't be in my top 5. He's the Rockets center, but he's very young, and when he's
Hmm.
healthy, he's very good. So I'm not saying he's a top 5, but keep an eye on him this year because I guarantee you he's going to be a great player this year as long as he's healthy. And I would say top 6 or 7 though, guaranteed after this year. That's my prediction. I don't think that a
Okay.
lot of people will put him there just because of his injury and how bad the team is. But for now, um, I think we covered everything though. Um, I don't think there's anything else to add. Do you want to say anything to the people?
James Harden's better than Steph. No, just trying to be toxic
I'm
real
gonna put
quick.
that poll up
But
later. Don't worry.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Um, so nothing.
uh, Thank you for joining us on SEVelocity once again. Um, I hope you guys keep watching the show and enjoy it. Please, usual like, comment, subscribe, especially comment, por favor.
Yeah. And tell a friend.
Yeah.
And if you didn't enjoy it, act like nothing happened. As someone else I watched says that on their podcast. If you enjoy it, tell a friend. If not, hey, act like it never happened.
No, if you didn't enjoy it, feel free to flame us.
Yeah, flame us in the comments. You don't have to dislike it. um, but without further ado, have a good rest of your week. We will potentially see you next week. We're gonna talk a little bit more about it. I'm going away on Friday, and I'm gonna be gone for a week, so we'll either record after or work something out. Either way, though, have a good rest of your week. Enjoy some more summer league play, some preseason football if you're into that, some baseball. Just had the Field of Dreams. That was really entertaining. But have a good rest of your week, and hope everything goes well.